This is not financial advice. The Bitcoin Source is an educational platform, not linked to any financial institution. The content of our podcast is solely for information and should not be seen as an offer to buy, sell, or hold Bitcoin or other financial assets. Consult a financial expert before investing. While our guests share their personal views, these may not always align with those of the Bitcoin Source. Opinions expressed in the Bitcoin Source, a Bitcoin conversation, are the speaker's own and may differ from the Bitcoin Source's views. Investing always carries risks. Please conduct your own research.
Welcome to the Bitcoin Source, your go-to hub for everything Bitcoin. I'm Dawdu, your host. Today, we're excited to introduce Alexander Leishman, the founder, CEO, and CTO at River Financial. With a background in software engineering, information security, and Bitcoin enterprise, Mr. Leishman leads investor relations, corporate strategy, and engineering at River. With that being said, Alex brings a wealth of knowledge to this Bitcoin conversation. Welcome, Alex.
Thanks for having me on.
No problem. So, Alex, this is your first time here, so let's start at the beginning. In 2014, while working as a software engineer, designing and building APIs for the mobile app MyCoin, you're bouncing between Palo Alto, California, and Taiwan. Was this the first time that you discovered Bitcoin?
It was my first Bitcoin job. A bit after I discovered Bitcoin, I came across Bitcoin in 2013 and fell in love, fell down the rabbit hole, and moved to San Francisco with the goal of being a software engineer in the industry. And MyCoin was my first job as an engineer working on Bitcoin stuff. They were like the Coinbase of Taiwan, and they had an office in the Bay Area where I mostly worked, and then got to take some trips to Taiwan, which is pretty cool.
Yes, that's such a dope way to kind of be introduced into the space. Like a lot of people that have jumped into Bitcoin, they've done it through just being an investor, dollar cost averaging, but to be someone so entrenched into the technology at such an early stage is always something that is really exciting and good to hear about. So, Alex, you've done a lot of things in the space. I've been doing my research on you, and I've been super excited to actually have this conversation. Teaching the first Bitcoin class at Stanford University must have been quite the experience. How has your academic involvement influenced your corporate strategy and engineering decisions at River?
That's a great question. So I was the teaching assistant for CS 251. That's the Bitcoin class at Stanford. That's taught by the professor is Dan Benet, who's this legendary world class cryptographer. And so working for him was kind of like a dream come true, and learning from him, and also realizing that there's some people that are so smart you'll just never be at their level. Um, and uh, and so through that class, I made a lot of connections. A lot of the students in the class actually ended up building businesses themselves in the industry. Um, I got connected to a large number of folks through that class, including Elizabeth Stark. And so, sort of serendipitously, through that class, I met a lot of people that have been foundational to starting River. Elizabeth was a very early advisor at River and was instrumental in helping us get off the ground. Um, and through that class, I obviously sort of helped teach a lot of people about Bitcoin, and I think it was good training into sort of like, how do you make smart people interested in Bitcoin? How do you teach them about Bitcoin? And I took a lot of those lessons around teaching people, when starting River, because a lot of running a Bitcoin company is teaching potential customers about what this thing is, both from a economic perspective and a technical perspective, and doing that in a way that is compelling but simple enough for them to understand. So I would say it was a pretty foundational experience for me.
Hey there, fellow Bitcoin enthusiasts. We just wanted to take a moment to appreciate you for tuning in to the Bitcoin Source, a Bitcoin conversation. Your support means the world to us as we dive into the exciting world of Bitcoin, blockchain, and all things cryptocurrency. If you've been enjoying our content, don't forget to hit that like button. It's like a virtual high five that keeps us motivated. And hey, sharing is caring. If you know someone who'd geek out over Bitcoin as much as we do, hit that share button. Finally, if you want to stay up to date with all our latest episodes and insights, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. You won't want to miss a single update. Thanks for being a part of our community. Keep exploring, and remember, the future is decentralized. Now back to the episode.
Yeah, I've studied or talked to a lot of CEOs in the space, and your story, your background, your journey is just completely different. It's completely unique. You're coming from like an educational perspective first, and then your passion, your major in school was software engineering. And what I like to pick your brain on, Alex, is you're coming from this diverse background, ranging from aerospace engineering to IT to your deep involvement in the Bitcoin space. I want to know, like, what was the pivotal moment that led you to co-found River Financial?
Well, so that all goes back to before Bitcoin. So um, before I knew about Bitcoin, I actually wanted to build my own currency and my own bank around money that the government couldn't control. Because I really had doubts about central banking, and I came to the conclusion that this was having a lot of detrimental effects in society that just weren't obvious to a lot of people. So when I discovered Bitcoin, I was like, oh my gosh, Satoshi is way smarter than I am. I would have never come up with this. This is way better. This is way better money than anything I could have made. And but I still had that desire to build a bank, right, that brings this to the world, because I knew that most people wouldn't be like reading the white paper and interacting with the protocol directly. That's just too much for the average person to bother with. And like in the early emails with Satoshi and Hal Finney said there are going to be Bitcoin banks that truly make this accessible to the world. And so I've always wanted to build one since since I knew about Bitcoin. And so really the reason that you know you know I jumped into starting River when I did was the stars just aligned in my life. I had built the engineering skills. I had built the connections to investors and capital. That was honestly the last piece. I kind of knew how to build the company at a certain point, but then I needed a little bit more time to build the network, to raise the capital and have the social signal around me that people would be willing to invest, because starting a financial institution, especially in the United States, requires a substantial amount of investment, at least a couple $1,000,000 just to get your licenses and handle all the legal stuff and get all that stuff sorted. So that's a long answer, but that's the why.
Nice, nice. And I've always heard really good things about River, whether it's Greg Foss or Lepard talking about it. People are always raving in the ecosystem about River. And it's funny too because a lot of boomers use River, and the boomers are probably the most difficult generation to kind of convert or orange pill into the ecosystem. So I have to commend you, Alex, for getting a lot of the older individuals in the space to buy into Bitcoin.
Well, thank you. Yeah, we focus a lot on just building beautiful, simple, easy to use products. Building anything simple and easy to use at scale is really, all of the work is beneath the surface. There's this whole like iceberg of work powering this like simple to use interface that people, don't have to ask too many questions about. So I'm glad to hear that work is resonating with a lot of people.
Yes, and speaking on simple to use, I know River has a big emphasis on customer support in an industry where this can definitely be overlooked. Can you share your philosophy on customer service and how it has been implemented at River?
Absolutely. So when we started River, one of the early realizations was a big opportunity in the market was to provide a place people could go with high quality service, um, who couldn't get that at Coinbase. Coinbase is has been wildly successful, right, and has really been a pioneer in the industry, but they never really nailed customer service, and I think they would also probably be the first to admit that. And so we saw that as a big opportunity, is to, okay, let's build this Bitcoin only, which simplifies the amount of service you need to provide. By the way, it like makes it just much simpler, much less confusing, and give very human service. And so, because Bitcoin is intimidating, it's confusing if you're learning about this for the first time. You often, especially imagine, you're a surgeon, you don't know anything about finance or Bitcoin, but you're interested in this. You want to put $100,000, $200,000 into Bitcoin. You want to talk to somebody on the phone first. And so obsess about the client is the number one value we have internally at River. And that obsession manifests itself in how we run customer support, how we build the product, anything we do internally.
Yeah, I'm really happy to hear that. You have other wallets. We won't say any names, but there's a lot of them out there, and the customer support aspect of it is just so bad. Like, it's clunky, or if you talk to someone on the other end of the support channels, you start digging in and asking them, hey, when did you get into Bitcoin? Some of them are like, oh, I got in 2022, or, they haven't really gone through a lot of cycles to see the pain points of what a user that is experienced in Bitcoin may go through. So I love to hear that you really harp on making customer support, making sure that your employees are educated, well versed in the product that you're giving out to the world. That's what's making River so successful in this space where we're inundated with so many different wallets. Everybody's coming up with a new idea, and River's just kind of staying at this tried and true business model of just giving a good product, giving good support, and then just hoping that people hold their Bitcoin for the long term and use it to, as sovereign wealth as it is intended. So thank you, Alex, for that.
Thanks. Yeah, our strategy is, on one hand, it can be complicated, but on the other hand, it's very simple. It's Bitcoin is going to be big. Build the best Bitcoin app. Like, that's just, like, kind of grug brain. Just build the best Bitcoin app with the best service, and it might actually work.
Yep. And, one of the big hot topics in the space, you see a lot of companies trying to do this, which is, giving yield on Bitcoin. And I wanted to know, like, the risks associated with Bitcoin custodians. So from your perspective, Alex, what are the primary risks, and how does River Financial mitigate these concerns for its customers?
Yeah, that's a very good question, and it's the number one thing that I always recommend people understand is risk in this industry, because the existing financial system kind of hides risk away. We have this idea of like risk-free interest and things like this. They kind of just hide all these principles. And so in Bitcoin, it's different. If your Bitcoin gets lost, it's gone forever. And so let's break that down a little bit. And what does that mean for a customer evaluating a financial institution? So what we saw in 2022 was there were a lot of companies like BlockFi saying, hey, if you buy Bitcoin with us and you keep the Bitcoin here, we'll pay interest on it. And a lot of people thought, well, I earn interest on my bank account, so this must be safe too. The difference is Bitcoin cannot be put to work and to get a return risk-free or safely. So what happened was BlockFi was doing all these risky things with that Bitcoin, and eventually it blew up, and they actually lost a lot of money, and so they had to shut down, and they went bankrupt, and their customers lost a lot of money. So the way we run things is we've never offered anything like interest on your Bitcoin deposits. Instead, we say if you buy Bitcoin at River and you have a Bitcoin in your account, that Bitcoin is in our vault, in our cold storage. It's 1-to-1. It's 100% of client Bitcoin we're keeping safe, and we're not doing any funny business with it. That means that every single River client could withdraw 100% of their Bitcoin tomorrow, and it would cause no issues for our business. We don't make money on your Bitcoin. It's our custody service. We offer it for free to everybody. So we're not incentivized to hold on to your Bitcoin. In fact, we encourage you, for anyone who is comfortable, to get your Bitcoin out of River and store it yourself in your own wallet. We actually have a feature called auto withdraw. So you can actually buy Bitcoin on River, and if you set up a recurring order, it's actually zero fee. So you can automatically buy Bitcoin every day, every week, and when your Bitcoin balance goes over a certain amount, that will auto send to your personal wallet where you control the keys. So we encourage that. We want people to do that, and so because there's still a risk if you have Bitcoin with somebody else that maybe they mess up custody. Now, obviously, we put a lot of work into making sure that we don't, and that our custody and our our security around our clients' deposits is very, very strong and very safe. But there's no such thing as zero risk, right? And so my advice to people is take some Bitcoin in your self custody, maybe $50, something where if you lose it, it's not the end of the world. Play around with it, get comfortable with it, see if securing more yourself and keeping some or all of your Bitcoin under your own custody is something that you'd be comfortable with doing. But there's risk to that too, right? You can also mess up. And so there's no such thing as zero risk in this industry. It's all about balance. It's all about maybe having a few different options. So yeah, I'll stop there, but that's how I think about it.
Which one's the best crypto asset? Well, Bitcoin's the best crypto asset. Okay. What's the second best? There is no second best. There's no second best crypto asset. There's a crypto asset. It's called Bitcoin, right? Right? There's no second best. Okay. But take all your money, buy Bitcoin, then take all your time, figure out how to borrow more money to buy more Bitcoin, then take all your time and figure out what you can sell to buy Bitcoin. And if you absolutely love the thing that you don't want to sell it, go mortgage your house and buy Bitcoin with it. And if you've got a business that you love because your family works for the business, it's in your family for 37 years, and you can't bear to sell it, mortgage it, finance it, and convert the proceeds into the hardest money on earth, which is Bitcoin.
This channel is for education purposes only and is not affiliated with any financial institution. This is not financial advice. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Now back to the episode.
Yeah, and what I love too is that, River is really big on educating its users. So if you go on Google and you type in River, you'll see tons of articles that you guys have kind of published on multi-sig, self-custody, making sure that you have private key security steps, like all these different things that I think River has really set the bar high for in the industry. So I think that really helps people too to really understand what do they want to do once they actually buy the asset. Do they want it to sit on the layer 1 protocol in the app? Do they want to put it into cold storage? Do they want to use a multi-sig function? And the fact that River is actually encouraging users to take the Bitcoin off of the exchange, put it into their own cold storage, is something that's paramount. That's like something that Robinhood is not doing, or at least they weren't doing initially until they caught like huge flack when people were trying to withdraw and they couldn't get their Bitcoin. So I think River paid attention to that, and they said, we found a niche in the market where we can bypass some of these other financial institutions that are selling Bitcoin, and we can give a solution to customers that they will love. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Yep. So Alex, the scalability of Bitcoin, particularly through solutions like the Lightning Network, is crucial for global adoption as a medium of exchange. A lot of people said that Bitcoin could not scale. The Lightning Network, the layer 2 protocol, proved that to be wrong. Based on your experience and insight, do you believe the Lightning Network can scale to meet global demand, and what challenges does it face?
So my opinion is that the Lightning Network can scale to meet global demand for any small to medium-sized payment between custodial wallets. So by custodial, I mean like a River or a Cash App or a Coinbase, where it's a company that's holding deposits for their customers, but they're all sort of aggregated on a ledger and managed by the company. And the reason that I'm saying this is the Lightning Network is great for these sort of business-to-business payments, but where it has a lot of challenges is giving every person a Lightning wallet where they control the keys. With the way that the Lightning Network works, with the restrictions around sort of making on-chain transactions and liquidity and all these sort of concepts in the Lightning Network, it adds a whole lot of complexity to try and say every person in the world can have a Lightning wallet where they hold the keys. So in summary, I think Lightning helps Bitcoin scale if everyone has like a Bitcoin bank account and wants to send Bitcoin to different banks, but not if everyone wants to be their own bank.
Makes sense. And, the concept of Bitcoin as digital gold has gained this traction over the years. And I think that Lightning is helping make that a reality. There's definitely some issues there in the protocol that makes it a little wonky. But I think as Bitcoin evolves, these things will be mitigated. In your view, what are the critical factors behind whether you should buy Bitcoin directly or buy like a Bitcoin ETF, for example?
So I think it depends on sort of what bucket of money we're talking about and who the buyer is. So in my opinion, it doesn't make sense to buy the ETF if with money that you would invest that you have full control over that's outside of an IRA or an investment account, or sorry, a retirement account. If it's money outside of a retirement account, just buy Bitcoin. It's cheaper, and you have way more flexibility in the future if you ever needed to move it somewhere. And it's just as easy or easier than buying the ETF. So it doesn't really make sense to buy the ETF with money outside of a retirement account. Now, if it's in a retirement account, like an IRA, that money is already kind of like locked up in this container anyways. So putting it in an ETF isn't like, adding any downside really. So in like for an IRA, I would actually recommend just buying the ETF directly, because an IRA is like this government locked money that you can only get out as cash anyways, I think, unless you do this special structure where you have like an entity owned by the IRA and then there's Bitcoin. So that would be my advice. And also, if you have, let's say, some like fund and you have all these rules around how the money needs to be used, an ETF can also make sense for that. But for the average person that just has their money and they want to buy some Bitcoin, just buy the real thing. You won't regret it.
100%. And this is not financial advice, but I think a lot of people are looking at the ETF mainly to just get that price exposure to Bitcoin. It makes your portfolio look more robust. It makes it look like you're actually making profit. So I think that that's what's really throwing a lot of people into the ETF realm. The hardcore maxi Bitcoiners that really understand what this thing is, they're very finicky about giving people control of their Satoshis, right? So it's like most people are just going to buy directly from an exchange, buy directly from River, for example, and then they'll just put it into cold storage on their own. But what I love is that River actually it was like an article or just like a small blog, asking the user like, do you want to buy Bitcoin or do you want to buy the Bitcoin ETF? And you guys had a chart of like, the first question was, are you accredited investor, or what are your goals for Bitcoin? Are you using it for retirement? Are you using it for hodling? And then you give all these different breakdowns of like what decision would make more sense. And I thought that that was just super spot on. And that's kind of what formulated the question that I just asked you.
Well, thank you. Yeah. Yeah, we have a flow chart graphic for like, how to help you make a decision. So I'm
Yep.
glad you like that.
Yep. So Alex, the concept of self custody is foundational principle for many in the Bitcoin community. How does River balance the ease of use between custodial services with the ethos of self custody? And I know that you kind of delved into that a little bit, but I think a lot of companies are not even companies, but I would say companies a little bit, but more so the user, the Bitcoin user, they're nervous about self custody, where as the price of Bitcoin becomes more ubiquitous, it's starting to hit these all time highs. We're probably in the runnings for a bull run. We're in the runnings for 100K Bitcoin. You have to look at self custody a little different. And I would love to know like the ethos of River as far as pushing the use of custodial services versus the ethos of self custody for the customer and allowing them to make their own decision.
Yeah. So the way I think about it is, every person is on a journey. Like a person's knowledge isn't static. And so the way we think about it is, you know, like a custodial service is the place almost everyone is going to get started. It is the easiest way to get started with Bitcoin. But I just see that as the beginning of a journey, right? Eventually, you can, once you get comfortable enough with the concept of Bitcoin, you can start saying, oh, okay, maybe I'll take some Bitcoin off of this custodial service and start actually using it myself and securing it myself. And then maybe you might go further and maybe I'll set up a multi-sig or an even more secure custody system that I control or my family controls, and I'll take all of my Bitcoin there. And so we see people on a journey, and they're coming to us on the first step of their journey often. And so that's our mindset is we're here to educate. We're here to help people do what they want, what they feel comfortable with. We also don't want to say, if you buy Bitcoin on River, take it off now, even if you don't know what you're doing, because that's also honestly just as dangerous or more dangerous. So we want to give people what they want, but educate them and encourage them to explore this self-sovereign direction. And I think what's important about Bitcoin is that it brings to the world this ability to opt out of the system. I don't think it's important that every single person does opt out. I think it's important that they can. And that's the key. Because as long as people can take self-custody or can opt out, things will be honest. And that's how I think about it.
Yes. And when you look at companies like Casa, for example, where they caught a lot of heat last year for putting Ethereum as a, self-custody Ethereum, a lot of Bitcoiners are like, oh, I'm done with Casa. I'm not messing with them. This is Bitcoin only. And River Financial has this focus on being exclusively a Bitcoin only company, which I think is a bold strategy. And the builders of that strategy is crucial. Because you have this engineering background, Alex, I want to know if you could elaborate on the decision-making process behind the engineering culture at River Financial.
Yeah, so there's a lot of benefits to just focusing on Bitcoin. There are technical and then there are sort of economic. So from a technical perspective, it makes things simpler, and simplicity is always better when you're building something. It's more secure, it's easier to maintain, it's easier to change, it's easier to train new people to build new things. And so by focusing only on Bitcoin, we can keep our systems simple. And our engineering culture at River is just focused on simplicity. Elon Musk has a great saying: the best part is no part when building a machine, right? If you're designing a machine, spend time figuring out what parts you can delete, because every part is one more thing that can go wrong. And that's how we think about software at River. We try and keep our systems as simple as possible. And when we're designing a new feature or a new product, we spend a lot of time thinking about what can we delete, what complexity can we remove from this, because the simpler you keep things, the less chance of things going wrong. And so that's our technical culture. And then from an economic perspective, my vision, look, I'm very pragmatic, right? Cryptocurrencies are here to stay. No one's going to stop trading shitcoins. Like, that's not going to stop. People love to speculate and gamble. Look at sports betting. Look at Vegas. This is just another thing like that. Our take is we don't want to build for that. That's not what we're focused on. We want to build the safe, place for people to save and build long-term wealth. It doesn't mean that some River customers might not also trade dog with hat on some DeFi wallet, but they're going to use us as their safe, place for their gold, right? Because they don't want the safe place for their savings to be the place where they're speculating on, Joe Biden tokens, right? So from an economic market position perspective, that's how we think about it.
Yeah, and I think that's a smart position to take because there's so much vacillation in the space. There's so many different things popping up. It seems like every bull run, there's always the new whiz kid or the new protocol or the new thing that sways people from just the finite basic first principles of Bitcoin, which is, stay honest, stay true, stack, hodl, and never sell if you try not to sell, right? Like, of course, everybody has a different situation, but I've been in the space since 2017, and you've probably been in it longer than me. But since 2017, I've seen so much craziness in the space. I mean, it's just like mind-boggling that every cycle, every new generation of Bitcoiners that come in, they're always faced with new challenges, new Ponzi's, new scams, and then you have companies like River, cut and dry, very clean cut, no frill, no extras. It's just it's a good app, good product. Use it, hold for the long term, and you will see success.
Exactly. Yeah, we want to be just that stable rock that no matter what comes and goes in every bull market, we're here. And all of those people that come into a new market cycle and they get excited about some crazy new thing, most of those people just end up at Bitcoin at the end of the day anyways, right? So we'll be there when they're ready.
100%. And our last question, Alex. So, looking ahead, what are your next big steps for River Financial in terms of technology development, market expansion, or service offerings? How does your role intertwine with these future plans?
So we have some cool things we're cooking up. I can't talk about all of them, but I can give some general themes. So one theme is we already serve a lot of businesses today, all sorts of businesses, whether it's an LLC you have, or a restaurant, or a construction company, or a plumbing company, or a real estate company. More and more entrepreneurs are wanting to buy Bitcoin for their company, and we're working on some things to make their lives even easier, to make their accountants' lives even easier, to really give them exactly the kind of product they want. So kind of business, serving business customers is sort of a, we're working on something that will launch hopefully later in the year. We're also working on perfecting the consumer experience we have. We shipped some cool features in the last year, River Link, and zero fee recurring orders, things like this. There's a lot more we can do with the wallet to make it even more delightful, even more fun to use, and to keep track of the price and stack sats in various ways. So we're also really focused on continuing to perfect the consumer product and the app that everyone knows and loves.
100%. And I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what River is going to bring about during this new cycle. We have a halving coming up probably in April or May. That's going to change the dynamic tremendously for use case, for supply shock, for people just buying and selling Bitcoin. So I'm sure as the CEO and the founder of the company, Alex, I know you're excited to see what the halving is going to bring for profits and for just the excitement around the ecosystem. And, to end this off, I wanted to thank you for sharing your invaluable insight and experiences with us today. It's been enlightening to hear about your journey in the Bitcoin space and the innovative strides that River Financial has been making under your leadership. To our audience, if you found this conversation as fascinating as we did, please don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the Bitcoin Source, a Bitcoin conversation. Hitting the notification bell ensures you won't miss out on any future talks with leading minds in the Bitcoin ecosystem, such as Alex Leishman. We're here to bring you actionable and logical decisions to deepen your understanding of Bitcoin and its impact to the world. Thank you, Alex, for joining us, and I look forward to having you back on here for another conversation at a later date.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, and also before we leave, Alex, also if you want to give people your social media, you want to let people know how they can find River, how to sign on board, please feel free to do so now as well.
Yeah, so river.com. It's very easy, and you can find us on Twitter at River, and you can find me on Twitter at Leishman, my last name.
Nice. Once again, Alex Leishman, thank you, brother, for having this conversation. Much appreciated.
Thanks, Dawdu.